this life ain't fair. And I know that you're going nowhere. Well, don't blame me for what you've done, because I know that you are having fun.
Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast, exposing the real estate secrets your agent doesn't want you to know. Here's your host, Tom Clary.
Well, don't you just walk away. That's when I'll say.
Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast. I'm Tom Clary. I'm your host. I'm a real estate agent here in the beautiful state of California, Los Angeles to be exact. I'm here with my co-host and buddy, Ron Bruno. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thank you for asking.
Good. Well, we're going to try out a new format today. We're going to add this, hopefully, to our arsenal. We're going to still be doing our interviews and do our rants where I unload on the ne'er-do-wells and charlatans of the industry. But we wanted to do something a little more casual with Ron and I, where we're just kind of spending a little time just talking stuff.
Yeah,
Talking about the latest news out in the housing world, you know, what we think is important for you guys to hear, topics that are on the top of my mind, things that we want to get off our chest. So, Ron, why don't you go ahead and start off things with our first news story?
Yeah, sure. So, there's a lot of information out there these days. So, Tom and I, we scoured the internet and found the best of what we thought would be topical, given the timing and what's out there. So we'll jump right into it. This is from CNBC. And this was on May 3rd. It says home prices will not fully recover until 2025. And a new report explains why.
Yeah. So basically, what I got from the gist of this is that they're saying that even though we hear these things about a crazy market going on out there and that there being low inventory and all that, and prices definitely rising, but you'd be surprised by how it hasn't necessarily matched its pre-crash level.
Yeah, I was surprised by this.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, we're here in our little bubble, right? So we're here in our Los Angeles bubble, and we just see craziness of what's going on in the market. And a lot of that price appreciation is driven, and we talked about this before, but and we're going to talk about it in the future, but it's primarily driven by low inventory, right? So you have a scarcity of supply that increases and a good amount of demand, given that we're right now in the height of the spring buying season.
Right.
So you have all these new buyers and you have very few listings, and it's a fighting frenzy. And apparently that's not the same thing all across the nation,
right,
which I found pretty surprising. So there's certain markets like Denver and San Francisco and Dallas-Fort Worth where they actually say that the majority of the homes are back to its peak value. Right, since the recession. But then there's markets like South Florida and Arizona and Las Vegas and, looking at Albuquerque and actually in the Northeast where a good amount of the homes have not reached its peak value, which I thought was kind of surprising.
Well, and I'm going to also interject here. The single most surprising thing I got from this whole thing was also if they actually had this really cool kind of interactive graph on it, where it had kind of these points plotted where percentage-wise how much the houses have gained back their value. And there's Los Angeles on it, and I was expecting it to be on the upper end. Los Angeles, only 37% of the homes have recovered their value.
Right. And
I thought that boggled my mind. I was like, I can't believe that.
Right.
That the only thing I can figure is that why we're seeing such craziness in the lower valued homes, the starter homes and all that. But I think in the higher priced homes, since there's so much more inventory there, they're kind of taking a much longer arc to get back to where they were pre-crash.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things with LA is, there's 4 million. I just saw in the LA Times, we just surpassed 4 million residents is here and people here. And that affects, so our sample is much larger So a lot of the homes, especially like in Riverside and, you know, in the Inland Empire, they're thrown into that mix.
Yeah.
Right. So when you throw all of those homes into the mix, it kind of skews the data a little bit. Whereas places that may have a smaller sample size, you know, they may have had a lot of appreciation. And, you know, another big piece to this is income is driving the growth.
Right. And that, I thought that was really huge too, because, you know, a lot of people thinking, well, there's no jobs there or whatever. It's not necessarily, or there's enough jobs there, but it really wasn't necessarily correlated to that. It was more about whether the wages in those jobs were necessarily higher or not.
Correct.
The places that have the higher disposable income, let's say.
Right. So San Francisco is actually 26% higher than pre-recession.
Right.
Right. So all those, you know, newly minted .com
CEOs,
you know, or I should say social media, you know, .com was back in, you know,
but
the
tech
90s. But the tech guys, yeah. I mean, their income growth has exploded. And, you know, and you know, we're certainly experiencing it here in Silicon Beach.
Yeah.
Right. With Snapchat and all of those different companies.
Right.
So yeah, I thought it was, you know, that was pretty interesting and you know, pretty, you know, with just you know, looking at you know, everyone's talking about, you know, are we in a bubble and you know, are home prices at the peak? Well, certain markets may be, but if you want to look at a cross section of America, it's all different.
Right.
It's all different.
And I think that's the kind of important lesson that I kind of took away from this was that I've always talked about it in previous episodes, and not kind of getting on to the whole, you know, train of, you know, of what all the pundits are saying, what all the, you know, you hear on the street and all that, really getting out and getting the information yourself. And if you listen to anybody out there, you'd be saying, oh my God, you know, prices are way up and oh, this is crazy and we can't, but it's perspective. It's
correct.
You know, if you really look at the numbers, we're really not that far up as we thought we were.
No, and another, I mean, we'll kind of, you know, wrap this story up, but, you know, one other factor is, you know, if you start with 100 and you lose 50, right, then that's a 50% loss.
Yeah.
But to go from 50 to 100, that's 100% gain. Right. So if you have a huge crash in markets like in South Florida, in Inland Empire and LA, in Arizona, where prices were so far down, it takes a while for them to creep back up. Right. So that's another factor here. And, you know, and if you compare that to markets like maybe, you know, Dallas, Fort Worth or Nashville or Colorado, where they may not have had as much of a hit. Right. Because they had other factors, you know, like Dallas, we talked about it. Toyota has moved over there. You have Boeing moved in. So you have all of these companies that are moving into those types of markets. Right. And that's certainly pushing prices up because there's more demand and also they're making more money. So. Right.
And also, I also wanted to make a comment about right here about what we were talking about perspective wise and how important it is to not just be a follower here. It's fascinating because at the bottom of this article, there was also another kind of link to another article that I saw and I went, oh, what's that? It was talking about that home buyer demand is falling, which also didn't quite, like, what does that mean? Like, how could that, all I'm seeing is people lining out the door to try and get into open houses and all that. But if you read through that article, it says that it was a Redfin survey, and they were taking the details, the information they were getting was that their requests for tours went down by 5.5% from February to March. So basically, somebody going on Redfin saying, I want to look at that house, that went down by 5.5%. And they're saying, well, okay, home buyer demand went down by 5.5%. And you hear that and go, oh, if you look at it on the surface, you're like, oh, people aren't buying houses, or they're buying less houses now. There's not as much a demand. That's not what it's saying. And if you took it at face value, you would be completely screwed. Because what it really is saying, and what I'm looking at, because I'm inside this, is that there are so few houses out there that are worth the people looking at that 5.5% less of them said there's something for me to look at. So it's not that there is a demand going down. It's just that they don't have enough to look at out there and make requests to go see it.
So the key is don't be just a headline reader.
Don't be a headline reader.
You actually want to read the article and understand what they're trying to say.
Exactly. Because if, and by the way, a lot of agents out there, they're headline readers too, right? Because they're rushing off to do their open houses. They're rushing off to do this, and they're trying to sell. And they're never getting into the deep details of what's really going on, the story beneath the story.
Yeah, because this headline says home buyer demand suddenly falling off as inventory keeps shrinking. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
That's not happening here.
It doesn't make sense at all. But if you get into the actual story of it, it's literally people don't have anything they want to go see because there's nothing out there.
Yeah.
And they're saying that that's demand. No, that's not necessarily demand. That's
supply, actually.
That's actually supply. Their demand is that they don't have anything that they want to look at. And so just a cautionary tale there, folks, to make sure that when you're out there looking for a house, you're not just, like Ron said, being a headline reader. You want to get the real story beneath everything. And you're going to do that by getting a competent person in your corner who's going to talk to you about what the real stories are, because they understand the deeper story out there. Yes, Ron's showing me something here.
Yeah, so so we'll get to our next story. And Tom found this one. I thought this was hilarious. So this one has a headline: Zillow faces lawsuit over Zestimate tool that calculates a house's worth. So I was showing it to you because I wanted you to get, have the thunder and all of that. But
well, he knows it's going to get me riled up.
Oh yeah,
because he knows that nothing makes me angrier than Zillow. Seriously, Zillow is the biggest waste of bits and bytes on the internet. If there is one thing that I think should be wiped off the face of the earth by the wrath of God, it's Zillow. It is a waste of your time. But let's go deeper into this article. So give them details. So basically, there was a woman
who happened to be a real estate lawyer.
If there's anybody who you don't want to get angry at you, it's a real estate lawyer.
Right. So it says that the suit alleges that despite Zillow's denial that Zestimates constitute quote unquote appraisals, the fact that they offer market value estimates and are promoted as a tool for potential buyers to use in assessing the market value of a given property. So what happened was, she has this townhome. It overlooks a golf course. It's in a prime location. She is trying to sell the home for $626,000. And that's about what she paid for it in 2009.
And there could be every argument that that's the value of it.
That's right. And she says that houses across the street with greater they have greater square footage. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. They're actually selling for $100,000 or more. However, because of the automated valuation system that Zillow has, she says that they're using newly constructed houses from a different and less costly part of town as comps in valuing her townhome. So Zestimate, it says $562,000. And apparently everyone's just looking at the number.
Right.
They're taking, so here's the thing. So, I used to work in wealth management, and the beauty of a stock is that exactly what that stock is worth because it trades every millisecond.
Right.
Right?
There's somebody saying, I think it's worth this.
Boeing is at $62 and you know what? Now it's at $62.70, right? And and you can make a bid on that, and that's, you go ahead and buy that. But a home doesn't have that. It does not have that. And what people are treating Zillow, they're treating it like the stock market, and that's the value of their home at that particular moment. And that is so wrong.
No, absolutely. And it's so funny. I was literally, when I read this through, I was thinking, if I sold you a watch, right? But I told you it doesn't tell the time, but it gives a zestimate of the time, you would never buy that freaking watch.
Right, because you want to be what's it, 20%, right?
Well, 20%. That's what they'll admit to.
Right.
Zillow will admit that they're only right. What is it, like 80% of the time or 76% of the time? I think it was. They're accurate. Usually, they come within 5%, if I remember correctly. They come within 5% of the sale price 50% of the time. Okay? They come within 10% of the price. I think it's like 75%. I mean, it's like I can't remember the exact percentages, but basically that's what they're going to even admit to. That's not what the actual reality is. These things are not appraisals. These are not actual valuations of the property, because what it is it's some guy sitting in some sort of, in front of a computer in Silicon Valley, creating an algorithm that somehow somebody put together to say, oh yeah, that's relatively accurate, but it doesn't take into, consideration things like, okay, are you next to a freeway? Are you on a golf course?
Does the property have a view?
Do you have an amazing view, right? It's all these things. And then people come walking into your open house. And this is really the problem here, is that the people walk in the open house and go, well, your estimate says that you're $500,000. No, I'm nowhere near $500,000. I am so far away from $500,000. This Zillow has been the single most damaging thing to the real estate market, to both the actual public and also to us agents as well, because we're constantly having to fight with the truth. We come in with the truth, even when we're going in to talk to a person who's trying to sell their property and say, look, we're looking at comps, and then you're actually on this very busy street, so you're not going to get like as much. People are going to go, oh, I don't want to live on a busy street and all that kind of thing. Oh, but my estimate says I'm, $500,000 more. Well, no, it's not. It's created this unreal expectation on both sides.
Well, I think Zillow also, I think their goal is to be the market, right? So they want to be able to have people list with them directly and essentially use agents and lenders as Uber drivers.
Yeah.
Right. So
right.
I was looking at, some of the conspiracy theories about that as well. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. And
I think that grain of salt is I have to be honest. I think it's even more than that. It's a boulder of salt. I don't think that if somebody said to me that, well, it's only accurate to within 2 or 3% of the purchase price, I'd be like, well, that's not bad. That's probably, taking human error into an account, you're probably, around 3-5%, whatever. But to have 20 to 30% off, that's inexcusable. How are you even selling that as a product? And, and it's funny because people, whenever they're going out to buy a house or whenever they want to sell their house, right? Nobody wants to speculate, right? Nobody likes that feeling of guessing, right? That how much do you think this place is really worth? I don't know. I don't know how much. So they would rather hold on to a false piece of information than have no information at all. And it's so damaging. It's the single most damaging thing out there, in at least on the internet.
Right. And this is funny. So this reminds me, I always talk about movie quotes. So it says right here, it says Zillow itself acknowledges errors nationwide, according to Hefter, whoever the person is. It has a median error rate of 5%. Its estimates are within 5% of the sale price 53.9% of the time, within 10%, 75.6% of the time, and within 20%, 89.7% of the time, Zillow claims. So this is kind of like that Anchorman quote, right?
Yeah.
Where he's like, the panther, where he's like, it works. It works on, what is it? Like 80%, 100% of the time.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of what this is reminding me of.
This is what they have to literally qualify all of their information with. This is, this is our estimate, but it's only right this number of the time. It's...
Yeah, and another thing, it says appraisers are cheering the suit because...
Of course they are.
Because Zillow's been playing appraiser without being licensed.
Right.
And, it says, that this person says, a Richmond appraiser, he says, about time they got called on it. So.
Yeah. Duh. Right. But the public has eaten this information up.
Absolutely.
When we go to market a property, we have to go to Zillow. Mm-hmm. We have to put the information there because that's where everybody is. But it kills me every time because I feel like I'm giving money to or something to the enemy.
So when it comes to refinances, I never use Zillow, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why is because of that Zestimate feature, and I just don't trust it. So I actually will use a bank's website because it's a little more accurate, or I'll do it the old school way and actually look at comps myself.
Yeah.
Right. And I also make sure to let my clients know that if your home appraises for this, then this is what your rate's going to be. But if it appraises for less and we're all of a sudden outside of a band, so let's say the lender, gives you a rate at 4.5 and it's between 60 to 70 loan to value, then okay, then that's what it is. But if it appraises for much less and now you're at 75 loan to value, well, there's additional adjustments. So the rate may actually be maybe 4.75, right? So these are things that people need to know when it comes to appraisals, right? And that's mostly on a refi, but
Also, I mean, if let's say we're out there looking for a house and we end up getting a deal accepted because it says, you think as a buyer, oh, the Zestimate says that it's worth $125,000. We're just doing that because the math is easy. Let's say that they say, okay, Zillow said it's $125,000, and you kind of stupidly rely on that. Mm-hmm. And then later on, it comes in that the actual appraisal comes in at, let's say, $100,000. And you were like, well, but Zillow said it was worth $125,000. That doesn't matter.
Right.
You're going to have to find a way to make up that $25,000 between the two.
Absolutely.
So it's just, look, anything that can, I'm really praying for this. I'm not much of a prayer guy, but I'm praying for this attorney to just fleece Zillow backwards and forwards because they deserve it. So what's the next story?
All right. So the next story, so this is from Fortune magazine. So this one says 1 in 3 Americans don't know these basic finance terms. So, so number one is nearly 40% of Americans can't describe a 401k. Right. Yeah. So it says results for the question, which of the following describes a 401k? We're encouraging in that nearly 2/3 selected the correct answer for this basic finance term, retirement savings vehicle. Woo!
Yeah.
That's exciting. 20% of respondents answered tax credit for retirement. Well, not correct.
Were they Trumper?
Possibly.
In Paul Ryan's camp?
Right. But, here's what's interesting. So out of the people that answered correctly, it says that nearly 2/5 were incorrect. And it says, here's a closer look at the different age groups, how they answered. So people aged 55 to 64 had the most correct answers, with 76% choosing retirement savings vehicle. Okay. They should probably know what that is.
Yeah.
You would hope. And then it says more than 60% of respondents aged 25 or older answered correctly. And then it says the age group with the fewest correct answers was 18 to 24 with 43%.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty shocking.
Because they still have 60 years to figure it out, right?
That's right. And people that are 18 probably don't have access to a 401k. And, that probably was something that, mom and dad lost all their money on. So maybe they blocked it out.
Right. I mean, during the crash.
Exactly.
They lost it.
Exactly. So then the next question says most young millennials don't know what a CD stands for. So, Tom, do you know what a CD stands for?
Certificate of deposit.
There you go.
Folks.
Not compact disc. And I bet you most millennials don't know what a compact disc is either.
They would kind of stare at you.
But yeah, so 68% of respondents correctly selected certificate of deposit. So that's correct. And but what's interesting is it says only 36% of young millennials, 18 to 24 years old, answered correctly. And what's interesting is, CDs, when I was in wealth management, we would sell these, right? So we would offer them back, 2007, 2008. And these things they actually gave you 1% or maybe 2%. Yeah. And you could buy a CD for a year. You could buy it for 6 months, all different types. But I mean, now people aren't buying CDs because there's no rate.
Yeah.
Right. You can't get it. So I would say they're probably less popular. Right. High yield savings accounts are probably a little bit higher.
Right.
And then, the final question here, it says, what is net worth? So it says the question, what is net worth, evoked a lot of incorrect answers. In fact, only 59% of respondents selected value of someone's assets minus their liabilities.
Yeah.
So, and then the final one down here is, it says, what does HELOC stand for? So
I love that that there was actually a portion that thought that it was a completely made up thing.
yes.
Like that was one of the options. There's not really a thing called a HELOC. It's just letters you've put together.
That's right. It says more males than females got this correct. For both, the most popular incorrect answer was HELOC is not a real thing.
It's not a real thing. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
That and the Easter Bunny.
Right. And then Gen Xers know what impacts credit scores, boomers worst. So that's interesting, probably because we've been so, educated when it comes to credit scores and FICO, and not a lot of people understand what a FICO score is, what it entails. And then also people don't understand who the three credit bureaus are.
Yeah.
Right. So not even a third of young millennials know the major credit bureaus. I happen to know it because I see them every single day.
You have a bit more of a perspective than they do.
That's correct. So interesting little story.
Yeah. When you sent me this, I have to say that it was like one of those incredibly discouraging things to read where you just kind of go, you have this expanse of the internet where you literally can have any kind of information you could ever want at your fingertips. And folks don't seem to, either they're overwhelmed by it, there's so much information, or it's just like they don't want it until they need it. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to hack everything. Everybody wants to go on YouTube and learn how to change your own doorknob, or do whatever the hell. But when it comes to their own financial health, they aren't so. What's the word I'm looking for? They don't go out and do it themselves. They're
not empowered, right?
They don't. Yeah, and but they're also not taking the initiative to do it,
right?
Mm-hmm. And it's just so sad. It could be, but that's. Look, if you're listening to this, my bet is you're not in that category,
right?
You're probably trying to educate yourself to the best of your ability, and what a CD is. Probably, I would give it I think that it would rank in our audience a little bit higher than what it ranks in that survey. But it kind of, I was crestfallen.
Mm-hmm.
I would really hope that we were making more headway.
Well, financial literacy is not taught in schools. All right. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And, I stand biased, just by the fact that, I have 10 years in personal finance experience and I have an MBA in finance. So I would skew higher with this knowledge, and some people, they don't know this information. Right. So I think it all depends on your background and what you're taught and what you self-teach.
Well, and I think that this kind of ties in really well with the next story that we were going to talk about. And I want to kind of discuss these both together because it really does have a lot to do with everybody trying to, I guess that there's a overwhelming feeling of wanting to be in control for everybody, right?
Yeah.
I want to be in control of this whole process. But at the same point, if you don't have the knowledge, B, the experience, or C, the need to know that much, I'm all about education. This whole podcast is about teaching people, right? And to take away fear by knowledge, right? But even at some point, let's go into this next story because I think it's important to discuss this because I think it has a lot to do with this. Why don't you go ahead and talk about this next story?
So this article is from MarketWatch. It says, this online startup wants to put the quote-unquote mortgage guy in a suit out of business.
Ron Bruno.
Exactly. This is why I'm not wearing a suit today.
Yeah, he decided not to put on his jacket.
Exactly. So it says, what Kayak does for travel booking, Morty aims to do for the mortgage process.
By the way, if literally we were watching Silicon Valley and somebody at Pied Piper came up with a product called Morty, I would say that's not real enough. There's no way that that's real. Morty is such a goddamn, it's like the paperclip, the Clippy.
Oh yeah, Clippy.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Whoever gave that name Morty Do not ever hire them at any tech company ever. That's ridiculous. But go ahead.
Yeah, so it says Morty was founded in 2016 by Brian Foe, a mortgage industry veteran, and Nora Apsel and Adam Rothblatt, both programmers. Rothblatt and Apsel were both interested in online consumer marketplaces, and Foe wanted to wring the inefficiencies and the patronage out of mortgage lending. So it's funny. It says it's worth noting that none of the three founders, all 32 years old, have ever taken out a mortgage or bought a home.
Now, okay. We're going to repeat that, okay? Because that's incredibly important here. None of these people have ever themselves gone through the process of going and getting a mortgage. And they're coming up with the new disruptor. It's going to be the new technology that's going to disrupt the mortgage industry. Have you ever bought a house? No, I've never bought a house. But I can disrupt this industry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, what this is doing is, so if you go to LendingTree or any of those online sites where, the banks work for you, right? So what this is doing is it's giving transparency, but, there's nothing wrong with transparency.
No, absolutely.
But basically what it's doing is it's opening up the entire process to the consumer where, they're giving them, okay, it would be in essence, guaranteed rate. We have 26 jumbo lenders, and on the conforming side, we have probably about 10 that people can choose from. It's basically saying, here you go. Here is our whole marketplace. You can shop and compare and look at every single thing, and you go ahead and you choose whichever one you want. Well, you know what's wrong with that? 26 choices or 36 choices, or giving even someone 5 choices, or giving people choices to begin with. That's our job as loan officers, to whittle this down and look at and use our own experience and know that, this particular lender, it's going to take a little bit longer because they have longer turn times, and, it's just going to be a tougher process. And yeah, the rate might be an eighth higher, but it's a rush, it's a purchase, and we got to get this person into the home, right? So, that's our job, is to have discretion and to actually look at the filter of all of these different types of lenders. If you give everything to the consumer and have them do it, like it says, they do it on their schedule, right? So they could start the loan in, month 1, and in 6 months later, out comes their loan, and, they're doing it all on their schedule, and, they get to go and see all these processes. I mean, when I came into the industry, I was overwhelmed. And I had a financial background, right? I mean, I remember going through the guidelines and reading all of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and just giving that to consumers and say, okay, we're going to give you full transparency. And you can read it, by the way. You just Google Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac and look at the selling guide. And if that doesn't overwhelm you, I don't know what does.
Right. And look, I'm actually, so, we have these websites that did it with travel, like Kayak they mentioned, and Priceline and all those, where you can comparison shop. And I fully agree that people don't shop for mortgages like they should, okay? But it's not necessarily all about price shopping. It's more about sometimes jockey shopping. You want to make sure that you have someone in your corner that you can go to late on a Friday night. It's going to pick up the phone and basically put you to rest and say, "Oh no, things are going fine. We're this step of the process. You just need to get me the X, Y, or Z." And they've done deals. They know what they're doing. So it's not necessarily the horse; it's the jockey. Sometimes.
100% agree.
Now that doesn't necessarily mean that sometimes there are jockeys that are great jockeys, and you need to check and see if some prices are better than others. I'm just saying that you want to, I can't tell you enough, when you're going through this process, you want somebody who you can trust, that that when you call up, and really need them, they're not only going to be there, they're going to have the answers and the wherewithal to get out there and actually work to help you, right? The actual, they're actually good workers. They're not just some guy sitting at a call center that you are calling up, because you got they were in a chart with 5 or 6 other mortgage companies, and you picked that one because it had the lowest price. But then, the guy that's at the call center doesn't know, what your, rules are governing your deal. So that's why I think it's incredibly important that you shouldn't necessarily be looking at price when you're shopping, although that's a factor.
Sure.
But also you should be looking at who it is that's actually driving it. And the other thing is a lot of folks also don't realize how important the lender-realtor dynamic is, right? So when you're picking these people sight unseen, and your realtor has never worked with them before. Now, I'm not saying that realtors can't work with loan lenders they've never worked with before. It's part of doing the deal.
Right.
But that being said, if there is a rapport or there is something where I know Ron has a certain way that he likes his itches scratched, it makes things so much smoother, and so much of the communication pipeline is so much, there's a value to that it could sometimes outweigh the 10, 15% that you're, not 10, 15%, but like, $1,000 that you're saving. I'd much rather the deal close, right? And not risk losing even more money because you're spending money all along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're in the middle of a loan, even if your deposit's not at risk, if you have to extend, I mean, a lot of agents, they'll actually charge the borrower, extension fees, right? So your savings of $12 or whatever the amount is per month was just eaten up in extension fees because you weren't able to close on time.
Yeah.
Right. And you weren't able to set up the loan and the way that it should be set up. And I think a big key to this whole thing is also engagement. Right. So, I have borrowers where they don't really want to know all the behind the scenes, and they just want me to come in, help them with the transaction, and we close. Right. And they just want me to reach out to them when I need them.
But here's, let me interrupt here for 1 second. That's something that is actually strangely getting unusual.
True.
More and more people are trying to stick their noses in, but you're talking to a person with an educational podcast here, okay?
Correct.
And so I'm all about being completely 100% transparent, and but at some point you let the doctor be a doctor. At some point you let the mechanic fix your freaking car.
Right.
You're not going to get underneath the oil pan, unscrew that thing and screw something up. You know what I mean? At some point, let an expert do it, for God's sake. It's expedient. If you're working with someone who's competent, right? And if they're good, they're going to be educating you along the way. They're going to tell you all those things that they're going to let you know the big picture. They're going to let you know how the gears work together. Sometimes they'll go even a little bit more into detail if you like a bit more detail. But at some time, seriously, when do you stop the hacking? When do you stop thinking that you can do better than somebody who's been doing it for 10, 15 years? Screw it, dude. You got better. Your time is more valuable than trying to go on 50 million websites to figure out how to do this yourself.
Exactly. And then, the flip side of that is, and then I have borrowers that are incredibly curious about the process.
Yeah.
And, as a natural teacher, I had to learn this myself. And, I come from, before doing what I've been doing in the financial world, I came from a sales and marketing background.
Yeah.
So, this wasn't intuitive. It was something that I learned, and it was something I learned through, working the process from A to Z and going through the trenches and working on deals. And I, for those that are curious, I like to educate them.
Absolutely. And please, I don't want anybody to take away from this that I'm somehow looking at these things and going, no, you don't need to know. Hell no, I'm not saying that.
Right.
Absolutely not. I'm just saying that there is a line where it's sort of like, well, why the hell are you doing that? Why not just get your own real estate license? That's what I'm here for. Why don't you go find out how, get a lender's, mortgage, license. And then, because at some point you're crossing a line into our territory and you're just screwing things up.
Exactly.
That's what I'm trying to avoid is just don't screw things up.
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to get somebody to make a decision, you don't give them 26 choices. You give them one or two.
Well, and what's best for them.
And you give them your recommendation.
Right.
Right. And you've done the homework, you've calculated it. And when you explain it and you give them the rationale, they say, sounds good.
Yeah.
Right. Versus saying, okay, here you go. Now go make a decision.
Now, do you think that there's an element of it? Because I was just thinking, right, of people who have kind of crossed this line in my, dealings with them. Do you think that they're trying to like? Do you think there's this feeling of not wanting something to get pulled over on them? Like, do you think that there's like, it's like if I'm not vigilant and know everything backwards and forwards, they're somehow going to. I mean, I get that fear, right? And I get that, but there's a difference between you knowing what's going on and actually kind of trying to get yourself into the process. I think that's really what we're talking about here. One of them is incredibly valuable because the more knowledge you have, the less fear you have. We've talked about that.
Correct.
And that's hugely important.
Yeah.
And we want that. But at some point, you're crossing that line into actual involvement where you can muck up the works.
Right. And you know what? I see this from two respects. So number one, I see Morty as a reaction to something that happened 10 years ago in the lending business. So I think having the transparency and also educating consumers and letting them know that the mortgage market, that in the past, sure, there were loan officers that would steer clients into higher priced products and those loan officers got paid more by doing that.
Yeah.
But those days are gone. They're gone, right? So there's so much regulation that I do not get paid any more or less if I'm choosing FHA or a conventional loan or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no incentive for me to go into a specific particular category. So I think Morty, if they had addressed it back 10 years ago and did that, then that might have been an opportunity. But I don't see that. And then as far as millennials, I mean, that's the whole reason why I give people options in starting the loan process. There are people that they would rather kind of play around with the application and fill things out and start, putting in their information. And that's fine. I give people that ability. They just go to rate.com/Ron Bruno and click apply now.
But it's an illusion. It's really an illusion.
Well, I mean, they're doing my work.
Right.
Which is fine. I mean, there's no problem with that. And it gives people, okay, I'm clicking and I can enter in my social and I can do all these things. And
it's not the reality of them taking some sort of control of this process.
No, they're just doing my work.
Right.
And that's fine. I have no problem with people entering in their data and sending that over to me.
Sure.
While I work on other things and boom, okay, there I get it. And I'm able, now I'm seeing your credit report. You ran it yourself. Right. But then I have others where, I'm actually taking docs through FedEx or I'm meeting with them in person and I'm, doing things online, I'm filling it out myself. Right. So it's all about a comfort zone.
Well, and I think that speaking of comfort, I think it has so much to do with avoiding talking to another human being.
Yes.
I mean, my God, folks, is it that horrible to literally to pick up a phone and say, hi, how are you? I have this thing I want to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to what we were talking with Brian. Remember we were talking about the psychology of money. You know, some people, I'm as scary as a dentist.
That's insane.
Yeah.
You're not a dentist.
I am not a dentist. No. And nor do I report information to the IRS, and nor do I tell people's spouses, and nor do I do all these things.
People have bought this. Mm-hmm. People have bought this line of thinking. Mm-hmm. And we're going to find ourselves 10, 15 years down the line with no professionals to speak of. And but things are all for the better. Why? Well, because I can go 3 weeks without talking to someone. Well, is that really much better for you?
I mean, personally, it would freak me out if I wasn't able to talk to somebody and have control of the process.
They'll complain. If they can't get you on the phone, though, that there is a huge complaint. Oh, they don't talk.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. It was fine when you were, putting in the stuff that you could put in on your own form or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then it was fine. Mm-hmm. But now you want to talk to somebody.
Right. No, I mean, you have to have an element of really understanding somebody because, if I just went off of what people put in their application and just said, okay, good, you're pre-approved. No. We have to have discussions. And if I hear something that triggers another question, we're going to ask it.
Yeah.
Right. Because again, our job is not to postpone the inevitable. So our job is to, make the best decisions with the knowledge that we have. And if there's information that needs to be investigated, we investigate it, right? We jump on it. We make sure that we check that box because we don't want it coming back to bite us because it always does.
Yeah.
Always does.
Right. And please, I want to make sure that as we kind of wrap this up and go into we're going to go into our last story here, though, I do want to say that one of the things you really need to take away from this is that if you want to do it, however you want to do it, we can do it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just saying you should be self-reflective enough to know when you're actually interfering in the process and you're making things worse. That's all we're talking about. We're not talking about, you not being educated. We want that. Mm-hmm. That's better for everybody. We want you to be involved. We want you to call us. I would love if, you didn't fill out a form online, that you gave me a ring instead. That makes things much. I have no problem talking to you, and I'm not a dentist. At the very least, we're going to say, oh, well, it's not going to work for us. I'm going to find another agent, and I'm going to go, okay, that's great. Have a great day. Mm-hmm. And if you call me a week or two after that and say, hi, Tom, I'll go, hi, because it's really not like a big deal.
Right.
So don't blow this stuff up in your head. What we're talking about, this Morty, is really about your fear. It's really about the fear of talking to a person who can help you. Mm-hmm. Anyway, moving on. Last story. And this one's a doozy.
This is from the New York Post. So you have to take that one with a boulder or meteor of salt. Homeowner uses naked chicks to sell $100 million mansion.
Boy. Yeah.
So this is this is in LA, surprisingly. So it says former movie producer turned real estate developer, Niall.
Why is it I'm not surprised?
I know. Niall Niami, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Certainly hope so. The Hollywood mogul is now selling his Beverly Hills estate, Opus. I don't even like their wine. Opus One.
I don't never had it, but
it's overpriced.
Okay.
Tasting
so
for like
the house.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Opus Wine. I don't know. For some reason, it was like $100 for a tasting. Yeah. I was like, really, your wine's not all that great. Yeah. But anyways, so it says the home is a whopping 20,500 square feet and features 7 bedrooms, 11 bathrooms, 2 pools, numerous water features, a champagne vault, which has a special section that holds up to 170 bottles of. Guess what?
Cristal.
And
it comes with the house.
Oh yeah.
Along with a gold-plated Lamborghini.
Yes.
And a gold-plated Bentley.
Yes.
So that's included in the whole price here. But what we're really talking about here is how they're marketing it.
Right. So they literally, you go to this story, you can just Google New York
Post. If you're over the
Post.
age of 18.
That's right. So there's a Instagram video out there that has.
Well, I think if you go to Opus, what's the
website?
There was a website, Opus.
Let's see here. So I have to click on it.
He has to click on it.
I have to click on
the link with the naked women in it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's Drew.
Make sure you clear your browser history before you go home.
Drew Fenton of Hilton and Highland. So you can just Google him. But I mean, look at this thing. I mean, good God.
Yeah.
So we're just looking at the video here. And
I think you're going to be surprised by my attitude about this.
All right, so obviously in the video there's a bunch of naked girls. They're all out in gold paint and doing whatever all over the property, and there's gold, lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So there you go. So use your imagination. But what are your thoughts about this, Tom?
Look, here's my thing. I am totally fine, 100% fine with taking a risk. Excuse me, with any kind of marketing, as long as A, it fits the story of the house, and B, it's good.
Yes.
Like they actually do a good job of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
There was this one agent back in Pittsburgh, I think, who specialized in dilapidated, like really down houses, right? And he did this ad where it's like, you're about to see the ugliest house in the world, right? And literally gave a tour of, look at this piece of crap.
Right.
Can you believe anybody lived here, kind of thing?
Yeah.
And excuse me, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
It worked because it was solid. It was like the entire idea and concept.
It was authentic.
Gelled, and it was perfect,
mm-hmm.
right? This thing is terrible. This thing is so bad. It is dark and shadowy, and you have this opulent property, right? That's worth, what was it? It's worth 70 million. What is it?
100 million.
Oh, it's 100 million. That's right.
100 million.
It's $100 million, right?
Yeah.
So at the very least, it should be a little bit brighter than that, right? And so first off, the concept is completely horrible.
Right.
It starts off with this woman on a bed looking through a virtual reality goggle. Right? Now, think about that. Subconsciously, what does that tell you about the house? You're surrounded by $100 million playground, right? With every wish you could ever think of come true. But you got to put on some VR goggles to escape? Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, you remember the guy from Broadcom that had the Samuel, whatever his name was, but he was the guy down in Orange County that had a vault and underground passageways for his escorts and ladies of the night and his drug den and everything else. Yeah. Right? So, I mean...
What the hell do you need VR for?
Well, I mean, that, and also, like, who are you marketing it to? Are you marketing it to a Bond agent? Like a Bond villain?
Yeah.
Or, someone that has, some serious issues?
Well, and then on top of it, so this video is so misogynistic, and by the way, that has nothing to do with the naked women, right?
Right.
I mean, if art is art, and I think that people can express their artistic whatever any way they want to, and if it's naked women, that's fantastic, and if everybody's consenting adults and all that, great, wonderful. But what's amazing is that all the women have these either masks over their face or these kind of like gold chain mail helmety looking things that are, I think Middle Eastern or something. It looks in kind of some sort of am I crazy?
No. It's like Gladiator meets Egypt.
But covering their face, which is reducing them to these body parts, right?
Right.
And I felt like, oh my God, this is what they mean when they say that, objectifying, women into like just body parts. And that was horrific.
Yeah.
Right? And I couldn't get any kind of idea about what are they trying to say? Like, what is this, you're just doing it for shock value at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, you're trying to get eyeballs.
Yeah, but the thing is, the people who will buy $100 million house, I mean, unless you're talking about some guy who can't tell, the only bit of taste is in his mouth, but he has lots of money, maybe he'll go for it. But maybe I'm deluded into thinking that people up in that upper echelon are usually smarter people, and they're going to be looking at it in a much bigger, much kind of more refined eye. And they know what a Picasso looks like. They know what a Van Gogh, looks like. They don't, if you're trying to get them with naked painted ladies. And by the way, if you could see me right now, I'm in a big old sweatshirt and, I'm Mr. Comfy and all that. And who am I to judge? But the models were not like, literally, they look like Craigslist models. I mean, it's just literally like who would let themselves be naked on tape. You know what I mean? It wasn't like models. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. It was kind of like the ladies from American Apparel.
Yeah.
right? And they threw a bunch of gold paint on them.
And so all I'm saying is that it just works on zero levels. There is not a single level where that video works.
What's interesting, it reminds me of, some of the agents
it's not titillating.
That are out there. No.
It is 100% not titillating.
No.
I don't get it.
No, but I think they're going for the shock value, and it also kind of reminds me of what I see with a lot of agents out there where, Tom and I, we've been in this industry for years, and, for me, I needed to learn this business, right? For me to really understand it. So yeah, I joined a team and I was on that team and I was able to, go to a lot of different places and do business development. But really before I was vocal and put information out there, like participating on this podcast and all of that, I had to learn it, right? So I went back, I honed my craft, I learned the business from A to Z. And, something I see with a lot of these up and coming agents is they want to just do the marketing. They just want to do the flash. They don't actually want to learn the process.
Right.
They don't want to learn A to Z. They want to be able to just, I'm going to, get this rich billionaire from Russia and he's going to work with me because I had a cool selfie or, I did this cool video when I was hanging out at Equinox and, I showed a picture of a property that's not even mine.
Yeah. That's the thing. Oh God, don't get me started about that. Because literally, well, first off, it's so surface. It's all about surface, right? You can tell it's like you can look at a beautiful piece of work and you can feel there's a heart beating underneath it. And if it's false, if it's all just pretty picture and there's nothing that's a heart beating underneath, it just comes off as false. That's what this really comes off as, is like, it's all just kind of, soft edges and glinting gold. There's no beating heart, which is what really living in that home is like. Like the Minecraft house, right? The one that sold for $70 million was right next door to it.
Right.
Okay, it's like this billionaires row here. And so it sold for $70 million. And you watch that video and you're like, damn, man, I'd love to be there. They had the candy wall and the thing. And so you really get the feeling like you live there, right? So that's one thing where most of these agents that are just getting started, they don't understand the depth that you have to go to communicate that lifestyle of a home, the story of the house, we've talked about it before, to those people who are looking for your listing, right? It just comes with kind of going, well, that didn't work. Oh, I know why. Nobody understands what the story of this house is. But then they're trying to co-opt other people's stories, right? And you end up, you go to their Instagram accounts and they have these gorgeous pictures. I mean, they're gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of other people's listings.
Yeah.
Right? That they found online.
Right.
And they say something along the lines of like, hey, boy, wouldn't you like to be by this pool? And it's like, yeah, I'd love to be by that pool. Is it your listing? No. Well, shit, dude. That doesn't help me at all.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And you're trying to fake me out.
Yeah.
You're trying to fake me out and trying to make me believe that that's your listing.
Yeah.
And that's total bullshit.
Yeah.
It is 100% bullshit.
Yeah, you're leveraging somebody else's work and
you end up being somebody's training day.
Yeah. Yeah.
You end up being somebody because it's literally like their first or second deal. And you think they're a luxury agent because they took some pictures of mansions and put them on their Instagram account. And you're like, okay, let's do this $2 million deal. Okay, let's see how that works.
Right, right. Well, and the other thing is, you're not being authentic to yourself, right? So if you are a newer agent, you're out there and you're trying to market your services, the people that know you, they know that's not your listing.
Amen.
And they know that you're not being genuine and you're not being transparent. It would make more sense for you to say, I'm in training. Hey, I'm learning this. I'm learning that. Hey, I'm working on my first transaction and, I'm helping a first-time home buyer. Like that's reality. Right. So trying to get a bunch of likes and friends and all these things on Instagram, if you're an LA agent and all of a sudden people in Australia are loving you. And I mean, I get it. I have an Instagram account and people are looking at it from Australia and everything else. But I'm not going on Caravan, going all these places because it's not worth my time. Yeah. Right. And, that's not my life. My life is, hanging out at WeWork and drinking coffee and beer and working on deals.
Right.
Right. It's getting in the trenches and that's what it's all about. So, I
think you have to make sure that if you're out there looking for an agent, if you're going off of these surfaces, you could end up in a position where you're making one of the biggest purchases of your life with someone who is also going through the first time they're ever making any kind of deal like this. That's about it for today. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them for us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Clarified Realty Podcast, all one word. If you have any questions about real estate or you are looking for someone to help you buy or sell a home, remember, I'm actually a licensed real estate agent. I'd love to help you out. Please email me directly at tom@clarifiedrealty.com or give me a call at 818-335-7662. Don't be shy. Come on, guys. Don't be afraid. Give me a ring. For more exclusive bonus content and advice between episodes, please check out our website, www.clarifiedrealty.com. Also on our homepage, you'll find links to helpful buyer and seller guides that can give you some great information for starting your home buying or home seller process. So definitely check those out. I'm on Snapchat, Twitter, and Instagram as well. My handle for all three of those is @Clarified Realty. Please leave feedback and reviews on iTunes or in the comment section on our page. Together we're stronger, so if you have any questions or ways that we can make the podcast even better, please let us know. My amazing theme song, Hey Now, is from the band Wolf. That's Wolf with 2 Fs. And please go check them out and like them on SoundCloud. They rock so freaking hard, they're always within 20% accuracy of kicking your ass. Musically, that is. And just a little disclaimer, I'm licensed by the California Bureau of Real Estate. My license number is 01715353. Ron's is?
Guarantee rate, NMLS 2611, NMLS ID 558706, California.
The advice we give is only for properties located in the state of California. For all other states, please contact your local real estate agent or real estate professional. Well, that's it. Ron, you good?
I'm great, Tom.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. Remember, the greatest thing you can ever do is make someone feel at home. Take care. We'll see you next week.